AlphaGo starts the game with a 3-4 combined with a 3-3. Ke Jie responds with his favorite, very flexible start point and the 3-4. When AlphaGo approaches, Ke Jie decides a counter approach. Instead of responding locally, Ke Jie is looking for chaos, and that is his strategy throughout this game. AlphaGo responds, Ke Jie responds back. AlphaGo approaches, and the small knight is coming. And then we have the very famous joseki that everybody knows these days. But at the time, this was the first time they were playing out this joseki, and Ke Jie had no idea what the theory was, but he played extremely well. Atari connect, and this all forced variation. When white extends down, AlphaGo pushes up, and then Ke Jie goes for the second line peep. He was expecting AlphaGo to connect, and of course, these days we know with AI that you can actually connect over here. White's going to follow up with this move, pinstring black stone, but also looking for the Kosumi to threaten black's group over here. AlphaGo did not choose that variation. Instead, he decides to go for a complex variation where it requires a lot of knowledge from both players about sacrificing and counter-sacrificing and understanding the game globally. So it's a very complex variation. If you don't know all the variations inside this joseki, you can choose to simply connect as black. White crawls, black cuts first. This is a very necessary move. White captures the zone, and now black plays the jump. And this was the first time that the world has seen this joseki. And at the time, there were so many professional players analyzing this variation. And the more they analyze, the more they realize how good this variation is and how much sense it made. Next up, we have Ke Jie pushing on the third line, and AlphaGo placed a flip Atari. So it's very important. You cannot ignore this flip Atari. If you simply extend, white's going to push up, and now when you do the flip Atari, white will simply capture. When black Ataris, white connects, of course, you have to play the tiger's mouth. White cuts, black connects, and white now extend, forcing black to block. And now, as we can see, white has 5 liberties, but black only has 4. And therefore, locally, this is a sente for white. Not only white gained a lot of territory, but also there's a cutting point over here that black has to worry about. This is definitely a very bad position for black. And this explains why AlphaGo does the flip Atari first. White now has 2 options, and both are correct variations. One of them is actually, unlike in the game, white can capture here. Now black's going to Atari, white connect, and this forces black to go back and connect on the second line. White now Ataris on the third line, and now the crucial move is for black to extend on the second line. This completely gets rid of white's ice space, and it's a very important move. If you don't play this move, you won't reach equality. White hops out, black also hops out. So both groups are kind of running, and now white can end the joseki by adding a move over here. So as a result of this, we can tell that white gained some ice space, black gained a shape over here, and black has to run over here. So likely black might follow up with a shape move, and this is just an equal position moving forward like this. That would be also a 50-50 game. In the actual game, Ke Jie decides to Atari on the outside, and at this point, black extends. So here, white cannot just cut. So if white cuts, black is going to make a tiger's mouth. And now, because of this Atari is a sente, white can't really push towards the outside. And therefore, he has to go back and capture black. Black will basically fix the weakness, and white honeys to make sure that in terms of liberty, white wins. But the problem with this move is that it's only about points at this point. There's a flip Atari later on here for black to make use of. Black has a very solid shape, and black can initiate a counter attack on the outside. So yes, locally, white has a very big corner, but if you look at the outside, black has this strong group coordinated with stone here. There's initiative over here. There's 2 versus 1 over here, and there is another corner over here. So white is quite slow in this variation, which is why at this point Ke Jie decided to tanuki, and this shows you how strong Ke Jie is, with especially with white stones. It's just monstrous, and also the fact that his prof is one of the greatest players of all time, and he's especially known for his early game and his understanding of this not of the local variations, but rather of how fusekis work, of how josekis work with each other, and when you should tanuki, and when is the time to play in this direction or that direction. He's a grandmaster at that, and Ke Jie learned so much from his prof, and that's why he plays very nicely in this game. So far, perfect play from Ke Jie. Okay, so AlphaGo decides to put pressure because he's not leading at all at this point. White decides to go for absolute chaos. So instead of defending, white cuts black into halves. AlphaGo decides to fix the corner first, and now white caps black inside. Black now also puts pressure against white, and Ke Jie welcomes that, and then he approaches. This is approach, looking at weakness over here, but also pincering black over here. Black jumps out, white kicks, black honeys, and white blocks. Black jumps out, there's a peep coming in, black has to connect that, and now white makes a shape, strengthening the 2 stones over here. Black attaches, white honeys, and now AlphaGo goes for the aggression. AlphaGo seems to be collaborating a lot with Ke Jie in this game. He goes for the absolute chaos, as he should, because this is not a leading game at all, because Ke Jie has played so well in the early game. So now we have a very fierce fight over here. So when the crosscut happens, there usually is a lot of complicated variations. One common variation with this kind of shape is for white to simply extend up. The problem with this move is black can now Atari, forcing white to extend, and now black follows up. Now, if white doesn't want to have the 2 stone captured, he has to go for the turn Atari. Black connects, and then Ataris from the outside, and then kills the 2 black stones over here. But then black can counterattack with a honey on top, forcing white to make a bamboo shape. And now black connects. This is looking at a ladder over here. White has to respond to that with a tiger's mouth. And now black jumps, forcing white to protect the weakness, and black crawls back. So the result of this is that, yes, white gains some profit over here, but this is slightly worse position for white because this group is extremely weak, and this group is not alive. And black will not let white connect at all through here. So definitely black will cut white off, and then white will have 2 groups under attack at the same time, and it's not easy to deal with. This is not what Ke Jie wanted to see. In this, so with this variation, it doesn't really work for white very well. In the actual game, Ke Jie chose the right variation, that is to Atari. This is a forcing move, and then white connects, forcing black to connect, and then Ke Jie extends out. This is still a very chaotic game because black has the potential to drag the stone out. Now, instead of playing peacefully, which black can do, right? Just playing a jump over here, and this would be a very peaceful game moving forward because black is alive over here, and then white will go back and fix the weakness. But AlphaGo actually wanted aggression in this game as well, surprisingly, and therefore he decides to create another cutting point for Ke Jie to deal with. Locally, of course, this exchange is favorable for white, but white has an extra cutting point, and that's what black was able to gain. Black now attaches, trying to separate the stones, and now white plays the attach. There's a lot of calculation behind it. So in the actual game, Ke Jie has thought about, of course, the most natural variation is for white to block on top. Black will play the bamboo shape, and now when white connects, black will slide back, and now all the groups that black has are connected. White will come back and fix the weakness. So if the game plays like this, white is actually totally fine with this position. And this is actually what AI of nowadays recommend, because it's a very simple variation where black stone over here is controlled or captured. So this group is fine. White just has to deal with this group and maybe potentially attacking the group over here. So very equal position from if the game plays like this. In the actual game, Ke Jie decided, of course, he didn't like that variation where black got a lot of territory and he got some thickness that he doesn't really know how to use very well. So instead, he decided to attach and go for the chaos. And this makes this game so legendary. Black pushes out, and now white goes in and attack the corner. Black extends, that is a sente. The push is also a sente, and at this point, black goes for the cross cut. Instead of responding in the corner right away, white decides to cut black off. This cutting has a lot of value. It makes sure that this group over here is in all kinds of trouble. Black needs to Atari and then make a tiger's mouth. So this tiger's mouth is a sente, is a double Atari over here, and therefore white connects. Black crows trying to fix the group on the bottom, and now Ke Jie Ataris. There's no escape for the stone, and therefore AlphaGo Ataris and Atari from the bottom. And at this point, the game becomes very exciting because there's a time bomb ticking over here. Ke Jie can choose to start this ko whenever he wants. So this game becomes a very exciting game where white is trying to find ko threat on the outside. And when white has enough ko threats, he can come back and start this ko over here and explode black over here. So very exciting moving from this point on. And the game is still completely equal. That just shows you how well Ke Jie has played in this game. For any other professionals, probably the win rate would be like 12%, 10% at this point. But for Ke Jie, this is still a completely equal game. Ke Jie now pushes on top, still an excellent move that aims at all kinds of ko threats. So if black responds locally, there'll be more and more ko threats, and therefore white can then, ignite this time bomb. So AlphaGo understands that, and therefore in the actual game, he Ataris, and then instead of responding locally, which there's no good way to respond locally, if you respond locally, there's just more ko threats, and I said you don't want more ko threats over here. So instead, AlphaGo decides to go for a counterattack. This move is huge because it looks at killing the 3 stones over here, but also trying to kill the group in the center. White now adds another move to gain more value. So with these 2 moves, black is broken into pieces. So what AlphaGo is looking for is to gain value by attacking the 2 groups on the bottom. AlphaGo Hanes, white Hanes, and now AlphaGo gets out, making sure the 2 groups are separated. White Ataris, black connects, white connects, and now black plays the crucial move. This not only is helping the broken pieces over here, this is kind of helping them, but also it's building a lot of territory on the bottom. And so, for example, if you play something like this, which is also a huge move that caps white inside, well, white will get this move. With this move, these guys kind of look dead, but also these guys, they used to look very dead, but now there's a lot of opportunities for them to come out, maybe break out through here and counter attack black over here. And therefore that move is absolutely huge. So AlphaGo understood the big picture. Since AlphaGo played this valuable move, of course, Ke Jie is going to take the other move that is connecting the 2 groups and capping black inside. Also a very big move. Now, of course, AlphaGo is trying to kill white over here. White exchange an Hane and then attach, black blocks, white Hanes, black Hanes, and then white plays the tiger's mouth. So from an AI perspective, at this point, probably Ke Jie should have just given up the bottom group over here. It's a lot of territory, but instead of dragging it out where you will suffer a long run towards home, it's better just to play light and reduce black. But of course, for a human, that's like impossible to see. Why would you not drag out your group if you can? Black extends, white pushes out, and now black plays the double Hane. So at this point, Ke Jie is very smart. He decides to start this ko a little bit, all right? So when black takes, there's a very natural ko threat that is to connect. Of course, you can't allow me to like take over here. That would be too big. And therefore, AlphaGo connects. When white takes back, AlphaGo connects on the third line. Instead of starting the code right away, Ke Jie still realized that he doesn't have enough code threads, and therefore he has to do more work. Therefore, he plays the Kosumi. This is aiming at the cutting point, and black has to fix it. And white comes back and captures the stone over here. I think this would be the first mistake for Ke Jie in this game so far, and it's really impressive. This is like 100 moves, but it's the first, I wouldn't even say mistake, but it's a big inaccuracy for white at this point. The correct move for white to play is actually to play the tiger's mouth. This is a shape move. It's a very big move that builds towards the top, and it's giving up the group on the bottom. And that's just the right way to play, right? AI is always suggesting, well, give up the group on the bottom, don't worry about it, and just look for opportunities elsewhere. The board is still like very wild. Like, what's happening with these three guys? What's happening with these guys, right? There's not a lot of opportunities for white to initiate attacks, so it's important to not play heavy, rather just give up the group on the bottom. But of course, you can't blame Ke Jie for not just play lightly. I mean, this is a lot of points, right? So at the end of the game, it's a game of points. And now AlphaGo is able to get the shape move, that is the extend out. White attaches, black honeys, and now white plays a tiger's mouth. This looks very nice for Ke Jie because his group is about to be out. And at this point, instead of responding locally, AlphaGo decides to push out and start a fight on top. And this is a very aggressive move, and it's a very nice move that comes with a lot of calculations from the AI. And against this Ke Jie, obviously, he's a very flexible player. So of course, he's not responding locally. Instead, he plays a Tsuji, that is to cut black. And this becomes such a fierce game. This group is kind of dead. This stone is in trouble. This group is also under attack. So at this point, it's just a very exciting game. AlphaGo Ataris, and now white extends out. AlphaGo Ataris, that's just his rights. And at this point, all the professionals at the time watching this game felt like Ke Jie is having a big chance to win this game. And the reason being that black cannot capture the two stones over here, obviously. Therefore, that just means that this group is in trouble. This group is also in trouble, of course. Like it's almost dead, in fact. White's group over here is doing pretty well because, as you can see, it's about to come out, right? If this group revives, that's a lot of points. But on top of all the troubles that black has to deal with this time bomb over here. So it's almost like threats coming from everywhere towards AlphaGo at this point. So at this time, the prof of Ke Jie, Nie Weiping, he was also watching this game. And whenever he gets nervous or excited, he would light up a cigarette and just smoke. And one of his students was saying, well, you can't really do that because there's a smoke detector. You'll trigger an alarm. And then the teacher basically just extinguished the cigarette and then just kept watching. But he was very nervous. He was very excited. And usually he's a harsh guy and he would criticize Ke Jie all the time. Be like, wow, you play such a bad move. How can you play a move like this? What is it? Shame on you, right? But he changed that day. He was like, wow, Ke Jie is playing a game right now. I want to see how this game plays out. And that's probably the biggest approval that Ke Jie can receive from his prof ever. Which shows you how well Ke Jie has played till this point. So, as I said, AlphaGo seems to be in trouble. The group over here, there's a Ko over here. But AlphaGo is forever AlphaGo. And he has a Tsuji of the game coming in. That is to play this extension move. It looks really dumb, but when it was played on the board, all the professionals were feeling disappointed for Ke Jie because this is such a nice Tsuji. It creates a Miai. So first, it's planning to jump over here and cap white's two stones. But another threat that's even more serious is if white tries to fix this, black now can play the small knight. And now white's in trouble here. If white tries to get out, black can push. Of course, if white keeps extending, I can keep pushing, and therefore white needs to block. But when black cuts, we can see that white is just so tight in liberty. So the reading in here is that if white plays a Tsuji, black can just squeeze. You can get this Atari in Sente, but look at white. White doesn't have enough liberties. when you have this cut, it looks very serious, but unfortunately, white is short by 1 liberty. And at this point, that could be a resigning moment for white. So this threat is way too serious, and therefore Ke Jie has to respond to the small knight, and therefore he takes the vital point instead of letting black taking it. Now black gets the move that he wants, that is to cap white here. Not only attacking white, but connecting his group over here. Of course, Ke Jie will not give up the vital stones. And now another Tsuji from AlphaGo, that is to play the Kosumi. And of course, white cannot push here because the tiger's mouth will just capture white in the center. And therefore, in the actual game, white extends out, making sure the stones are saved. And now black connects. So after these exchanges, we can see that white is dead in here, right? Because black basically just captured white in here. And if you try to fight this group, you don't have enough liberties. But the game is still actually, there's still some chances for Ke Jie because there's still a time bomb that's not resolved. Next up, we have Ke Jie initiating the time bomb right away. So Ke Jie has been very patient this whole game, waiting for the moment to trigger this ko. But apparently, he wasn't patient enough. So at this point, the game is still very chaotic. And what Ke Jie should have done, but of course, this is just insane, right? For a player, you know, if you're playing against AlphaGo at the time, for you to be so patient and be able to see all the variations, to understand when to initiate this time bomb is impossible. But if he could have played this move, right? This is looking at the cutting point. So of course, black needs to fix, and then white extends. So the idea for this exchanges are very complicated. The idea for white is that white will never win this ko over here. So whenever white tries to play the double Atari here, black will fight this ko, and there will never be a chance for basically for Ke Jie to win this ko, and then white's corner is probably gonna die. And also, white's group over here is also going to die because just doesn't have enough liberties. But what white can do is try to get as much sente on the outside as possible. Let's say white go for a threat. He goes for the outside and then tries to squeeze black liberty. So black has to go back and capture the group, which AlphaGo will capture this group, and because black just has more liberties. However, after Ke Jie sacrificed this group and then this group, look at what's going on the outside, right? Especially the area over here. What's going on with these 3 stones? And what's going on with these 3 stones? There's still a lot of work that Ke Jie can do to make the board super chaotic. And this would have been a much more legendary game than this game that was actually played. Well, it's already legendary enough. But if Ke Jie actually played like this would have been an insane game where Ke Jie sacrificed 2 groups and then tries to kill the entire board over here. Think about that. It's just an insane game if it was played like that. But of course, Ke Jie is a human, and he could not have read so far, and that's just normal, and you really can't blame him for it. In the actual game, Ke Jie lost his patience, and he decided to go for the ko fight. Black takes, and now white uses this as a ko threat. Black bumps into white, white takes back, and now black has a lot of local ko threats. The squeeze is a very nice Tsuji. And then Ke Jie goes for the Atari. A lot of people would be saying, well, this is a losing move, but actually not really, because Ke Jie has read out a lot of things, and then he saw how hopeless it was. Because if you decide to fight out this ko, what's going to happen is, let's say you use a ko threat like this. Black will connect, you take back. Okay, black still has a lot of local ko threats over here, and therefore black can hold for a while. White will push, that's another ko threat, but then black also has another ko threat. White connects, and black takes back. And now when black extends, so if white extends, then black is gonna get rid of this ko. And I said, as I said, this group will eventually die as well. So if you try to go for the kill, what's gonna happen is black has all kinds of Tsujis to squeeze white's liberties, and this looks horrible for white. And white only has 4 liberties, right? If you play it out, so white will have both groups killed, and likely black will survive something in here, and that's game over. So Ke Jie, of course, read this variation out. Now, the other more interesting variation instead of extending, white can go for this co-threat as well. And this is actually a co-threat. Therefore, black has to Atari. When white takes back, now AlphaGo can go for the attach co-threat. And of course, Ke Jie now will just eliminate this co-threat and claim the profits. But after which, black is able to connect through. And therefore, the two groups over here are completely secure. Now, this has a lot of values. And that drastically diminished the value white gained over here. But what's very terrible for white is that this group is dead. And look at how much territory that black has over here. Now, Ke Jie can try to fight this out by blocking, but AlphaGo is going to peep in. This is the vital move. And when white extends, black is going to extend, white blocks, and now black comes back trying to make a second eye over here. White hanes, black now extend once again. White has to kill. When black takes, we have to throw in to kill, but at this point, black can just turn on the first line. And unfortunately, there's not even a liberty fight. When white connects, black will Atari, and black connected through. And therefore, white is just dead. It's a clean death, and then there's nothing Ke Jie can do about it. And therefore, the game is probably over at this point, especially if you're playing against AlphaGo. Okay, so those are the variations that Ke Jie actually read out. So a lot of people will be like, oh, that's such a disappointing, in the actual game, when Ke Jie played like this, it looks like such a disappointing move. Why would you find such a small co-threat? But that's because Ke Jie read things out. So when black connects, white captures, and as we can see, this is quite small because it only drags these stones back, but white is all dead over here. So at this point, it's kind of hopeless for Ke Jie. At this point, after the tiger's mouth, white tries to attach, black extends, and then black was able to get this move, which is absolutely huge. Ke Jie hanes, which is also a huge move, but AlphaGo can easily manage to live in the corner. And therefore, at this point, when AlphaGo Ataris, Ke Jie connects, and then he captures the stone on the second line. It's at this point Ke Jie decided to resign because AlphaGo is bound to live something in here, and there's nothing that Ke Jie can gain to compensate for whatever loss that he has over here. Like, this is all territory. This is a quarter of the board, and at this point, Ke Jie was feeling very disappointed, but he knew that there was no chance, and therefore he resigned.